Finally,
at FICCI
yes.
Frames. Dr. Nene, cardiologist, entrepreneur, some of the things that you're working on in the digital field are really, really interesting and striking. I'm going to talk to you about that, not just Dance with Madhuri, but I'm going to take the occasion to push you a little bit on some of the other plans which are also really, really exciting. So put your hands together one more time to have both of them sitting here with us. As I said, kick-starting this particular day at FICCI in every sense of the word. I'm going to start off, because this is a conference that has really been talking more and more on digital. Now, the interesting thing which I have noticed at FICCI Frames over the years is about 10 years ago, the digital sessions used to be in one of the tiny little rooms in one little corner, and we used to go and hide there in a broom closet, and somebody said, you really want to talk about digital? Okay, you have 5 minutes. And now, you're here in the main ballroom with Madhuri Dixit and Dr. Nene, and you're discussing digital. So it just shows how the world is changing. It's becoming a digital world?
Yes, I really believe, and so does Ram, that how we view content is going to change drastically. It has already started. It's not just about the 70 movie parda, like they used to say, and that's where it is. Magic happens everywhere now. Even on your little phone, the iPhone, the smartphones, magic is happening there as well. So it doesn't matter whether it's a 70 it doesn't matter whether it's just a small, in centimeters. The screen is changing, everything is changing. The way we view everything is changing. The way entertainment is being given to people is changing. And I think, and so is education. First it used to be just the classroom or the home tuitions that used to give you education. But today it's, digital. It's there on your computers, it's there on your iPhone, it's there everywhere. And so I think the way entertainment or education or any other field, like even sports, to educate you in sports, even that has changed today, how it is being given to the people. So I see that, if you want to add something to that.
I think she hit it on the head that we live in a magical time where you can take journeys far beyond your living room and beyond the film theater to worlds you've never seen before. And what's happening is people are cutting cords and they're exploring. My kids are excellent examples of this in that they find stuff. Anything you ask them, they go to Google and they look it up and they come to us and they tell us. And we didn't have these tools when we were younger, but even beyond that, I think in all of our related industries in media and entertainment, as well as education, medicine, all these other things, I think digital is going to allow us to move much faster. And particularly in India, where we have a habit of leapfrogging, because we generally get technology late, we have an opportunity to educate the masses, to give them entertainment on a different scale, and to bring us as a superpower in the world, from India beaming out to the rest of the world.
But when we are looking at the new digital world, and I think this is one of the journeys that you have also taken, you've got to visualize it in a completely different manner than anything you were doing before. If you're making a movie, for example, you're planning for a large screen, it's a certain experience, and it's certainly a passive experience. If you're building an app or you're building something for a digital, for a mobile phone, it's totally different. The screen is smaller and it's interactive to a much larger extent. And you have started to make that transition in the apps and the other products that you're building.
Yes. Before we go on to that, I have to tell you something, that today there's so much information that kids have, at their fingertips, like Ram was saying, that it's hard to tell them stories that we've heard. Chand pe, there was a woman living on the Chand, and wo aisa dekhti hai tumhe, raat ko aati hai. You kids are like, Mom, do you know there's no gravity on the moon? Do you know nobody can live there? It's like, okay, I can't even tell you stories anymore. No fairy tales now. Everything has to be facts, and nothing can be really fiction. So that's one of the things that I see.
Yeah, try telling kids about Santa Claus.
Exactly.
Santa who? What are you talking about?
Exactly. Everything, is facts and real and there. And our journey began in a similar way because Ram was working on his healthcare project, which has brick and mortar, which has digital, and which has AI and everything. He will explain, to you about that. But he was starting on his healthcare venture. And one day I was just sitting, and I was wondering. I said, you know what? Dance is my passion, and I have learned dancing since I was 3 years old. And when I saw them working on this, I started thinking, can we do this for people? Can I do this for people? Can I share with them this passion? Can I, bring... Now, people ask me, why are you so good at dancing? It's because I got to learn with the best of people. I got to learn with the best of gurus. The Guruji who taught me when I was 3 years old, or Pandit Birju Maharaj Ji, or Saroj Khan Ji, they all are good teachers, and they are the best in their field. Can I get, people like that to teach everyone, and share this passion with my fans, with people who want to learn dancing? And this was what was going on in my head. And I said, today, this dance you see in films is very commercial. It's, but your roots are always in how you learn and from whom you learn, the accessibility. I got access to them, but not everybody can learn from Maharajji or Sarojji. And so I went to Ram and I said, is there any way that I can teach people this passion? I can take it to every house so that they can learn. And once they learn, it also gives them skills where they can go out into the world, teach other people, and they can make a living out of it, or they can get jobs, and stuff like that. And that's how the journey for Dance with Madhuri started, actually.
And it's not just people who want to be choreographers or really work on dance in films. These days, if you go to any shadi,
yes,
everyone's dancing. They're on stage. They're dancing. It's like a mini Bollywood production sometimes that they're all doing it. So
yes,
that, I'm sure, is one of your key target audiences.
Absolutely.
Next time you go to a shadi, don't make a fool of yourself. Learn to dance.
Learn to dance with Madhuri. But yes, that was one of the things, because, people come for shadis nowadays. Destination shadis have become the in thing. Somebody's from Mumbai, somebody's from the US, somebody's from the Caribbean, somebody's from somewhere else, and they all get together to that one shadi, that destination. But how do they learn? I mean, if they have to dance together, then they have to learn the same thing, right? Then they'll have to come there early and try, choreographing, learning, everything. But this is all ready-made. You just go on the website, you learn from it, you upload your videos. Our choreographers can, give you hints and how you can improve, and then they can all come together and perform the same thing.
Ram, but one of the issues in this, and I'm sure you face this, is there is still a lack of connectivity. I mean, India is changing. Connectivity will come, and hopefully in the next 3 or 4 years, it will be more ubiquitous. Right now, there is a lack of connectivity. Is that one of the reasons why you took the decision to go back, in a sense, from digital to slightly older media? I'm not sure you can call Tata Sky old media, but at least back on the television set, because that's what you did. You took the same product, and you said, I'm going to put it back on Tata Sky now.
So it's an excellent question. You have to evolve, and you have to see what the audience needs. And our vision was simple, that everyone should have an opportunity to learn. No matter where you are, no matter how big you are, how small you are, it should go to the last mile. India is still in its nascency, I would say, in broadband technology. And the cost of content, the cost of gigabytes of data is still too high. And that'll change as Wi-Fi becomes public, as you get 4G penetration everywhere. We will leapfrog that problem. The other problem we were suffering from was there were no good payment gateways. And that's all changed since demonetization and whatnot. But in the process, what we said is to get to the last mile and to enjoy it as it should be enjoyed, our product, and we had almost 150 hours of content, over 1,800 lessons, needed to be everywhere. And so one of the partnerships we brought in was with DTH. And one of our first partners was Tata Sky. And we took it out to 15 million people. Within 3 weeks, we had 100,000 paid subscribers. So this provided a means of monetizing it, but more importantly, provided a low-cost way to take it out. And when you think about it, one dance lesson is 700 rupees. On our platform, for a month of 150 hours, it's 99 rupees. On Tata Sky, it's 59 rupees for a month. And so what we've done is we've really disrupted how you learn. At the same time, we took those same lessons on ground now to 11 schools in India, and we're increasing every single day. And we're taking the same people we trained from the app and from the other environments and giving them jobs. And so this is the ultimate Skill India project, where you learn, move, and unite. And at the same time, one other adjunct which we thought was interesting is I put a heart rate band on her. And during her dancercise lessons, in 15 minutes, she had burned almost 400 calories. Her heart rate was sustained 130 to 150.
And it's probably a lot more fun getting Madhuri to teach you to
Absolutely.
dance, burning calories that way rather than being on a treadmill.
Absolutely. And that actually became
Give me your cardiological advice now. Is it actually the same? Don't run on a treadmill, learn to dance instead.
Oh, it's a whole different world. You're using so many muscle groups and actually having fun. And the hardest part is to getting...
That's your professional advice as a
yeah,
cardiologist.
absolutely.
You're sure.
Do something you love, right?
Ditch your statins, ditch the treadmill, and start dancing.
You know, also treadmill can be so boring. You're just at one point and you're going nowhere. You're trying hard to go somewhere, but you're not. And when you have like someone, you know, teaching you and dancing and, you know, you put your hand here, now your leg there, your mind is also thinking and trying to coordinate everything. That ye haath hai, to ye tang hai, to aise hai, to wahan pair jayega. And you're thinking of all that and it kind of, the time just goes, you know. It's 30 minutes are up and you're like, wow, I sweated out. I didn't realize 30 minutes are gone. And, you know, you have fun at it.
All right. I think you've convinced a lot of people in this audience to certainly, you know, to certainly give it a shot moving ahead. But you know, I have to ask you this question: the type of dance that people want to learn. Now, I don't want to, in any way, badmouth some of the dance trends that you're seeing right now. But you spent years when you were a kid learning Kathak, yes. And that's difficult and it's complicated. If you see some of the dance steps in Hindi movies right now, it sometimes seems you just have to wear fairly few clothes and, you know, wriggle a little bit, and that's dance.
And that's difficult too, because you have to look good also while doing that. Well, I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't criticize what's going on, but if I want people to get reintroduced to something that I have learned, something that my experience has been, you know, I'm sharing that experience with them through Dance with Madhuri, because we have the best of choreographers. We take up the Bollywood dances because Bollywood is famous and you cannot run away from the fact that people love Bollywood, and that's why I am who I am. That's why people love my songs, they love my dances. But I feel if they want to learn that, nazakat kya hai, you know, what it is. We are not only teaching Bollywood dancing, we have all types of dancing. Whether it is Indian classical, there's Bharatnatyam, there's Kathak, Maharaji has taught Kathak, the best dance guru you can ever dream of or learn from. So those nazakat, those adaएं, everything is there.
No, so that's exactly the point I'm trying to ask, that in the present, in 2017, is anybody interested in nazakat or adaएं or even grace for that matter? Because sometimes what you see has got none of those. There's no nazakat, there's no ada, and there's certainly very little grace. I'm not saying everywhere, I don't want to make generalizations, but there are some people, and I'm sure you must be seeing it when you're seeing movies right now, you're saying,
people are
you
craving,
could do what you're doing, but do it with a bit more grace.
No, people are craving for that. I mean, why do you think the songs that we have, like my song, say, for example, from the 90s, Choli Ke Piche Kya, any of the songs that you pick up, why are they still popular? Why are people still watching it? Why do people still love me? You know, it's adaएं, they like it. They want to see it, they want to see more of it. And that's why, you know, songs like Kahe Chhed Chhed Mein or Mohe Rang Do Lal, you know, people just love to watch those songs.
I think the one thing, you bring up a very good point, that Bollywood, by and large, is the most popular form in India. But the thing is, the audience for the classical dance forms is there, and the problem is, how do you make that sustainable? How do you get people to get interested if they've never ever seen it? And particularly in some places, you don't have access to this sort of stuff. So when we have 35 different dance styles, ranging from classical Indian to jazz to contemporary, and the other interesting part, which you'll find interesting, talk about Made in India, 50% of our audience is actually overseas. And not just Desi audiences, but they're learning and they're uploading thousands of videos. And so what we're learning is we're sparking a revolution and bringing together a community platform. And that's what we wanted to do, that how do you translate passion in film, in music, in acting, in
so
dance?
Tell me, you must be having usage statistics. What are the young most interested in learning? Are they interested in learning some of the better forms of dancing, or are they all saying, well, show me a little bit of hip hop and jump up and down? And
So it's very interesting. We have deep metrics on various different platforms. And so we know every user's journey and we help them along. We have users from 5 to 80, but our predominant pool is from 18 to 44, and 70% of them are women. Now the interesting part is fitness was, by and large, something people do every day, and they use it for that. But when you look at it, there is a subsection of people learning Kathak and Bharatanatyam who are very dedicated to what they do and stick with the program. By comparison, for the shadis, they come and they'll learn Bollywood with all of their friends for 30 days, and then once the Sangeet is over, they will then come sporadically.
But is it a minority of people who are wanting to do the more traditional dance?
I mean, it's hard to know because our numbers are only about 3 million and we had 31.5 million video views. But I would say it depends on where we're catching from. So to answer your question, I would say the majority are definitely Bollywood, and that's worldwide. But at the same time, there's a significant minority who are learning real stuff and never had access to that before.
Okay, before I allow the subject to go, so how often is it that you will see dances or songs being done on the screen right now when you watch movies and you say, I could do that but with a bit more grace?
Do I have to answer this question?
Yes. I think Karan did ask you that question.
But first of all, let me tell you that, some of the steps the girls are doing now are, there's so much acrobatics and they're doing so many things which maybe it's impossible for me to do. Like I couldn't be able to like jump like that or take a cartwheel or something. But sometimes I do wish that the camera would stay a little bit and just show a little bit of expressions, what the girl is feeling, and not just with the body, but also with the face.
Yeah, and item numbers also. It's not that you haven't done naughty songs, no, with naughty lyrics, but you did them in a slightly different way to some of the items.
Yes, because I had a lovely guru, Saroji, who was choreographing for me for those songs. And like I said, there's a lot I've learned from her, and it's something that I want to share with my fans or my followers or people who like to see me dance or who want to dance like me.
So when it comes to learning things digitally and online, and I think, Ram, to take your point forward, this is going to be one of the, perhaps the biggest trend that we're going to see digitally. Learning, education, people trying to get information out of digital means is perhaps going to be one of the big trends of our time. Where else can you push it? Before I come to him on that, could you learn acting through an app?
Yeah, why not? Yes. There are courses of acting, though I have never studied acting before I started working. But there are courses, there are institutes out there which teach you dancing. There's the Pune Institute. Yes, it is possible because it is basically expressions and it is, what you feel, and you can talk to people and, teach. It's easy to teach, in fact, acting than dancing, because dancing is a lot of movements, and so people have to follow that. But with acting, I think it's going to be a little easier to teach.
So I think you've kind of taken our business plan and roadmap out of place, because music and acting are actually our next two coming. What we built was an IP structure, and you can populate it with anything. And the idea was, it's always three things. It's brand, content, and construct. The brand should be a domain authority in that area. The content should be world-class, filmed on the sets of any studio in the world. And the construct should be able to deliver it. I mean, this was one of our principal issues, that with her popularity, our servers on Amazon were crashing. And we had to redesign them so they could handle 1 million users a second. And so, we had to do a lot of stuff, but now we're in a position to do that. The second thing is, in India, method acting and really focused study was not even there until recently. And so I think there's an opportunity there to take it forward.
Yeah, well, it's the era of transparency, so I might as well get your full business model for the next 8 years right out here. Forget the audience, don't worry about the fact that this is being televised. When you're doing your medical app and taking medicine to the population?
We're already in...
You don't have to answer that.
No, we're already working on it, and the idea is simple, right? That everyone should have access, 24/7, 365 days a year, from the best. And the second thing is, what you have to do is empower the patient and scale the doctor. And to do that, we're building something which is very unique, which will hopefully change the way medicine is practiced. Because I think the biggest problem I see in this country and worldwide is a scarcity of resources. There's 1.25 billion people and only 1.6 million doctors, of which 800,000 are allopathic. On top of that equation, when you go into the rural areas, which is 70% of India, only 2% of all MBBSs make it out there. And so in order to do that, this digital gateway provides the
But
infrastructure.
the risks are slightly higher. If somebody learns a wrong dance step on the internet, all right, you learned the wrong dance step, you're going to make a fool of yourself at a wedding. If somebody gives bad medical advice on the internet, you could kill someone.
Yes,
So that's why.
And the idea is simple, that you engineer how people behave. You change their habits fundamentally,
Yeah.
build in wearables, and then you have physician care extenders who are using your devices to deliver care. Because the problem is you're not going to be able to get more doctors. We don't have enough med schools. We don't have enough armamentarium.
Now, extending this to taking Indian culture, Indian industry, Indian films to a more global platform. And Ram was saying that it's not just Indians or Desis abroad who are watching this. It actually does spread to the general populations there as well. And how tough is it to explain to them what Indian dance is? I'll give you an anecdote. A friend of mine was here from England for a wedding. His daughter said, I actually understand the way Indian dance works. There are these steps. You do change the light bulb. You do put things on the top shelf of your clothes. You spread seeds. Those are the basic steps.
Yeah, you have to kind of understand their life and what they see today. Like, there is a little step in Kathak called Kran, where you have to turn your hands like this. Now, whenever I teach that, I always think of what the kids today see. Where do they see this movement? And then you say, hey, the pizza guy who makes pizza, he throws the bread. So just imagine you're throwing a bread in the air and you're just turning it around. So you have to, kind of understand them and teach them in their language. It's the same thing, but you're teaching them in their language.
All right, but let me just shift focus away from digital for a bit. It's been, what, 5 years since both of you have come back to India. Given that Trump is now the president of the United States, probably a good decision to have taken. Which of you?
Well, we didn't leave it up to him. We just came here, by ourselves.
Right, Ram?
I'm sorry, can you restate the question, please?
No, I was just wondering whether the decision to come back to India, how you're feeling about that. Is it a particularly good decision now that Trump is the president? And you're getting a lot of your other friends, including American friends, saying, hey, can we join you?
I think worldwide, things are becoming very contentious. And as Britain would allay to what you were up with all night yesterday, it's sad because it's become a language of hate where it should be love. And India has lived, if not in peace, at least in harmony for 4,000 years. And being an Indian at heart, being here makes me happy, right? I think the US and the infrastructure we were talking about is certainly something they could share with us, or with Japan, with India moving in that direction. And that sense of discipline is there. But I would say the things I'm seeing globally, not just in the US, are a little bit disconcerting.
Right. So I've been asking for questions on social media also, and a lot of people are still absolutely fascinated and interested by the stories of your life and what happened when you went out there. So I am going to, and I know you've repeated some of this in the past, but I'm going to take the occasion to ask you again. So for starters, when you went from here back, when you went from here to America, you've often said that you really enjoyed that feeling of freedom that you had at that time. You could be anonymous, you could go to shops, you could go to malls, you could do all of that. Was there ever a time when you actually had the feeling of going to somebody and saying, "Tum janti ho main kaun hu"? I'm going to flip the question a bit from what you've often heard lots of times.
Going to someone and saying, do you know who I am?
Well, in the sense that you went to a shop, you went to somebody, some cop stopped you and said, you have an ID card, who on earth are you? And you say, people know who I am.
Yeah, not really, because you know how Indians are everywhere today. Even in Denver, we did have Indians there who did recognize me. When I used to go shopping or grocery, sometimes, you bump into people, you meet another Indian while you're picking up tomato and gobi and all that. And they're like, hey, hello, it's great to see you. And you say, yeah, how are you? But it's so courteous, it's so nice. They just say, oh, we love you, we love your movies and stuff like that. And they do respect the fact that, it's your private moment and you should be left alone. And they say, we just wanted to tell you that. And, they kind of go their way. But sometimes, it used to get a little scary for me because I had just started driving there. And, I used to go to strange, like, I'm just trying to find addresses and stuff like that for the first time. I've never done that in India, right? Because I always had people with me wherever I went. So for me, it was also a little scary going out on your own, not having anyone to, kind of just take you there. That's what we were used to in India, right? We just sit in the car and the driver just takes you there. Sometimes you don't even know where you're going and he just takes you there. And you have to find it on your own. तभी थोड़ा कभी-कभी लगता था, I wish people would recognize me and they would say, no, you're going the wrong way. Go that way, that's the way you want to go. But, that you have to discover everything yourself.
And of course, the big problem that you will increasingly be facing going forward, and especially if you're Satya Namas, when people are coming up to you and you're not expecting it, is that earlier they would ask you for autographs, and that's fine. Now everyone asks you for a selfie. And you're saying, my God, look at the way my hair is.
Yeah, the day you have oil in your hair and you think nobody's going to see you today, and you're like the shabbily dressed, and you're like, I just want to go out, just get a pair of something, milk, lana hai, bachon ke liye, and you just step out, and that's the day you're going to meet someone. Saying that, can we have a picture? And you're like, oh my God, now she's going to have a picture with me looking like this. So it does happen sometimes.
And what did you say? Can I give you an autograph?
Let's do it. Because they're your fans.
So there are all those pictures of Madhuri Dixit out there with oil in her hair somewhere on the internet, which people can now go and find. Can we put them all up? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And is it, actually, and again, this question I'm sure you've been asked, but is it actually true that you had absolutely no idea of who she was?
So no one believes it, but I grew up in LA and I worked at UCLA and with a lot of the celebrities, but I hadn't grown up watching Indian films. And so the way we put it is everyone put their pants on one leg at a time and you needed to treat them the same way. And so my parents moved to London in '63 and then to the US in '73 and really hadn't kept close ties to the Hindi films or anything else, unlike many Indians, I must say. But as a result of that, it was refreshing for her because I think one thing she didn't bring out to your question is that anonymity has its benefits. And them asking her who she was not a bad thing always, because here it's the opposite way, that she can't go anywhere. And she's a prisoner of her own fate, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, sometimes makes you very, how should I put it, constrained. Even in Denver and any of the big cities like LA when we got married, there were a lot of Indians. And so it was an issue. But to answer your question, I really didn't know because I didn't grow up watching the films. I couldn't speak Hindi. I spoke Marathi fluently. And so for me, the Hindi films didn't have a draw. I'd only seen 2 films. One was Amar Akbar Anthony, and the other one was Pakiza, which my mom had an 8-track tape and she would have in our car all the time. And I knew like all the lyrics to the songs.
So have you watched all of her films by now or not yet?
I've seen the ones where, so there's 2 rules in our house. One is we never talk shop. So all of her awards, all of her other stuff is all at the office. And she doesn't want the kids or us to be affected. That's how she grew up. The second is that I've been to some of the film premieres and that's what I've seen, but she's not very comfortable watching films with family. And so for me, watching them separately is kind of an odd thing. And so really I've seen the ones since we were married. We've been married for 18 years. And so I've seen those only, and maybe a little bit from Hum Apke Hai Kaun and Dil To Pagal Hai, but not a whole lot.
You're trying to tell me everybody in this hall has seen more Madhuri movies than you have.
Yes.
The funny thing is even my kids get a little skittish when they're watching my movies. So there was this movie called Koila, which was coming on the TV. And I was just leaving out to go out to get something. And they were watching it. And when I came back, the kids had gone for their swim lesson. And on the computer, I saw this little note hanging. Because when I left, the song was going on where I eat bang and I get a little high and we sing bum chicka bum, some song going on. So I came back home and I saw this little note. And I said, what is this? So I started reading it, and it was like written, Dear Mom, why are you acting so weird in this movie? Love, Arin. So my son had written me a little note, say, why are you acting so funny and weird in this movie?
So you've never actually sat down and said, okay, let's all sit together and let's get some pizza and watch a Madhuri movie?
No. I think it's not me. I mean, I wouldn't want to watch my own movie with my own family. And for me, I want to spend time with them, just talking to them, playing with them, and there are other things to do.
And How are they adjusting to the fact, because they would have also grown up the first few years of their life with you being completely anonymous, and now suddenly back here, you're not anonymous anymore. So how are they dealing with that transition? It must be a big transition for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a transition, but I think the kids, they chilled out because initial, years of their lives, they just know me as their mom, and they just know me as someone who takes care of them and does everything for them. And now suddenly there's this other identity. So when they were little, they used to get a little frazzled with people shoving the cameras in my face and trying to take pictures and all that. But now they have fun with it. Like they'll go and, they'll be like, they'll come in front of me, they'll photobomb me and stuff like that, when somebody else is clicking. So they have fun with it now. But initially, yes, it was a little odd because they used to go to school and my son came home one day and says, why is everybody asking me, what's your mom's name? And, or sometimes they say, is she your mom? They know you are my mom. Why do they come and ask me, is she your mom? Those kind of things. And my little one was like 7 years old and he got, did you know your mom is a big star? Somebody said that to him in school. He comes home and he says, but mom, you're a mom, right? You're my mom. I said, yeah, of course I'm your mom. So they've gone through those little cycles, but now they're fine.
So you're still getting the chance to do more normal type things, like ever taking them to a shop or cooking and all of that stuff, which they're used to seeing you do?
It's a little less in Mumbai because, you have cooks here who cook for you, and I have mine since the past, I don't know how many years, 25 years. But we still have fun. Of course, we go out for movies and, we do the other stuff.
But Transformer movies or that sort of stuff?
Yeah, more like superhero movies.
Suicide Squad.
Iron Man and, yeah.
I know how it is. So, all right, let me just ask you one question. Internet rumor, I'm just going to try and see whether this is true or not true. Is it true that the first date you took her for was mountain biking and you almost made her go down a hill?
It was.
Mountain biking? I mean, Ram, seriously? Why?
I had no idea. I think that the thing was I grew up doing everything, surfing, biking, hiking, mountain.
He didn't realize that in India, sports is not a big thing, Like for us, biking is like, bicyclically, or, you're just going in your streets, la 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 la, and that's it, you biked. And when he said, for the first time, he asked me, would you like to go mountain biking? I hadn't sat on a bike since 20 years, maybe more. And I'm like, yeah, why not? Because I just thought it'll be a mountain, and I just cruising down, coming down the road, and, I said, yeah, of course, let's go. And then he bought me these shorts, which were like padded and all, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And once I went on there, I was like, wow, am I really doing this? And we came down the slope, which was so, full of rocks, and because of my ego, I couldn't say that I've not done this before, I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, I'm coming down that slope, holding onto that bike for my dear life. And I look back and I say, did I just do that? And after a while, like we were in the mountain for 45 minutes, 1 hour. And there was this one little place where I said, you know what? I can't do this. And he said, what do you mean you can't do this? I said, this is the first time I'm mountain biking. And we both started laughing. And he's like, really? You've never done this before? I said, no, I'm sorry.
And you didn't think that perhaps a candlelight dinner at some restaurant might make more...
Oh, we did that
That's
later.
him. He wants to like jump off some bridge and, do mountain biking and jump off an airplane and, that's fun for him.
As a heart surgeon, you see death in front of you every day. And you don't take life for granted. You do everything to its fullest. And the idea was that you go and race Formula Ones, you go and bungee jump, you skydive, you surf, you do everything you can, and you want everyone around you to live life that way. And so for me, it's a little different. And with her, I took all the precautions. I had a fully suspended Gary Fisher, and I even brought these like really tight padded pants. And I thought for sure her mom would throw me out because in India, when my grandma's days and my parents, they're like, girls always wear their knee-length skirts and all that. And she was fine with them. She's like, Bombay has changed. And she was comfortable. But I must say that I carried the bike more than she rode it because it was a very technical ride and there were a lot of boulders and things. And I didn't know it was behind her brother's house in Irvine and Aliso Viejo. And I didn't know how tough of a ride it was. But I was okay, and I
He
figured
was
she
fine.
would be.
He was just cruising along, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, I was like really.
Okay, so that was internet rumor to him. Internet rumor for you. Is it true that one of the first things that really, one of the reasons you married him was because of his cooking skills? Is that true?
Well, yeah, that's partially true. First of all, when I met him, he didn't know who I was. That was the most refreshing thing. Because whenever I meet
Is he,
people.
then does he get a chance to still cook?
Oh,
And
yeah,
what does
he
he do
loves
really
to
well?
cook. He just loves to cook. And I think I started cooking only after marriage. And a lot of the cooking that I do, I learned from him. Because he's a great cook. He can do things from scratch, like whether it's Italian or whether it's, you know, barbecuing and, you know, everything I've learned from him. So.
I think the key is I'm a foodie, and I love to eat. And India has amazing food, and
Yeah.
so coming here was like a breath of fresh air. I can never come close to my mother-in-law or my mother or my cook in terms of cooking prowess. But for me, it's almost, you know, spiritual in how you create things, and it's a way of showing love, right?
And that may be something else that an app can come up with.
Well, we're working on a show.
Yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah.
All your plans for the next 10 years are going to be revealed. Are you thinking going back to the US at any point? Tell us now, so we are prepared for it. Any thoughts of going back at all, or no?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, just looking at, before I toss it open to the audience, when you're looking at the Hindi film industry, how do you see that evolving right now? Obviously, there are lots of good stories that are coming up,
Yes.
that's one of the big trends that you're seeing right now. What are the other trends that are really catching your eye?
First of all, you know, it's very disciplined now. Films are made within time. Everybody's on time. The discipline is there, which is fantastic. Different stories are being made. It's not just about song and dances. They do have a thread, you know, of story running through it. They're trying different subjects. You see so many different films now, which is wonderful. And the audience is accepting all that because films are doing well. Films like Dangal, which was a very that did well. I see a lot of women taking coming at the forefront, producing their own movies, and which is wonderful. So I think it's moving in the right direction.
Right. One of the things that is a disappointment to many people, and I was once interviewing Shah Rukh, and he had actually this is many years back, almost 8, 9 years back, and he was referring to you and saying how somebody as talented as you and others, well, in India, we are still not making as many films for female stars who are slightly older, not in their 20s. Which you do in the West, which you do in Hollywood. I mean, look at the sort of movies that are made for someone like Meryl Streep. Now, you can be as talented as you want, but not that many movies are being made in India right now.
But
Is
I
that
think
something
that's
which you think is a
changing
problem?
too. That's changing too. That's from my experience in the past 2 years. I've been hearing scripts and I've been meeting people, and the mindset of the audience is changing slowly. You know, change always takes time. It is not going to happen overnight. But I do see a change. I see writers who are writing, women-oriented. Not oriented, but I would say the woman's role is more than just, a mom or, someone who's avenging something or someone who is a victim. I think they are going out there and looking at the world and seeing the women's role change in the society. Because today she's not just a mother, she is also a career maker, she's looking after the kids, she has her own home, she has her in-laws or her own parents to look after, and there's so many hats she's wearing. And people are taking cognizance of that now. And slowly, I see a little more scripts coming in which have the woman in a much more enticing kind of role than...
I got to make one comment. We've been to LA about 6 times in the last 6 months, working on projects there and here. And I think you bring up a very good point, that digital is changing how people perceive film and everything else. Life imitates art, and art imitates life, but in India, we're stuck in neutral, and that's changing. In the US, if you see Netflix and Amazon and some of the projects they're coming with, they're taking chances because they no longer have to subscribe to the commercial whims of the consumer and everyone else. Instead, they're looking for subscription bases. And so what they're talking about is talent floats to the top. If you have a talented actor or actress, it doesn't matter whether they're black, white, old, young, that's not relevant. What's relevant is the stories that are being written. And I see with digital and with India, that will change very, very dramatically.
Yeah, so taking that point forward, so Madhuri, we are seeing you now, we've been seeing you on the small screen, which is television, and on the tiny screen, which is the app. So do we see you again on the big screen if there are really good roles that are
Yes,
coming?
definitely. Definitely.
And there are those possible roles that will
Yes.
interest you and catch your fancy right
Absolutely.
now.
Absolutely.
One of the other big debates that I've been hearing about in recent times is this entire question of whether the Hindi film industry is only meant for people who are well connected and are star kids. Now, you were not, and even this debate has raged actually for decades. You were not a star kid, you came inside. Is it easier or tougher for somebody outside the film industry to get a break in?
I don't know if it's tougher or easier, but I think if you're from the industry, you know how it works. Because you've seen your parents, go through the motions. You've seen how, the whole industry works. When you're from the outside, you don't know how it works. So first you have to discover how the industry works, and then you have to make your contacts, and even after you have done one film, you have to keep doing film after to show that you have it, you can do it, So it's a little difficult to be an outsider and come into the industry and make a name for yourself. But I think even for the star kids, it's hard because, they are under scrutiny all the time. And they are scrutinized in a much tougher way than what an outsider might come and do, So you might be a little kind to an outsider, but with a star industry kid, you will be like a little more harsh, saying that, oh, he's so-and-so's son, why can't he act in the first movie itself? You want him to be like a star. So I think both things are difficult to do, They have their own difficulties and they have their own plus or minuses. What do you think?
All right, on that note, let me turn to the audience and see who has a question. Yeah, the gentleman there.
Madhuri, your basis has been your grounding in Kathak. And some of the films we've seen have had excellent Kathak numbers, but song and dance in film also is an extension of acting and storytelling. And can you recall one or two of the most Kathak-based songs which helped you in furthering a story and really enjoying all your parhans and your chakardars and all that, and at the same time, like in Pakiza that your husband mentioned, one or two instances where you thoroughly enjoyed using your grounding in Kathak to narrate a story?
He's trying to ask you any songs that you can think of where you were really able to use that grounding in Kathak.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Kahe Chhed Chhede Mohe from Devdas, because that was done by Maharajji. He had choreographed it. And it was very, very pure Kathak. There was no filminess to it. I would say Mar Dala was a little more Bollywood, but Kahe Chhed Chhede Mohe was very Kathak, and I really loved doing that song.
No, I also meant songs that helped you in storytelling.
Which songs really helped you?
All the moves in Kathak are based on symbols which mean something.
Yes.
Like this thing or that the pizza thing that you told me.
Yeah.
How does the knowledge and the language of Kathak translate into storytelling in Indian films?
Well, when you dance in a film, it is not necessarily taking forward the story. Sometimes it's just the emotion that you are in and you're trying to convey that emotion. Like Mar Dala was one such song where it's all emotion. She loves this man, but she knows that he doesn't love her back. But she's like Meera, she still adores him. And so the expressions that will come, for me, they're rooted in my classical learning. And whatever expressions I wear, whether it's Humko Aajkal Hai Intezar, which is a folk song, it's a folk song. But how do I express with the eyes, with the eyebrows, or with just the muscles of your face, with your smile? How do you convey your feelings through your eyes? All that I've learned because I've learned Kathak. And there's Abhinay, which is a big part of learning Kathak. And because of that Abhinay, I can bring that element into any Bollywood song.
Hi, Madhuri.
Okay, so can I just sort of follow-up question to that? I'm sure many people have asked you which was your favorite film which you have done, and I'm not going to ask you that question. Instead, I'm going to ask you which is your favorite dance that you've ever done on screen?
Well, there's so many dances which I love, but like I said, Kahe Chhed Chhed Mohe is one of my favorite dances that I've done. But in a more like a Bollywood style or a style which was different, which was beautiful, I think was Humko Aajkal Hai Intezar. Because for the first time, the lady is not singing all the lines. She's expressing the lines, and the leading lady is just singing the chorus in the music. And I think Saroji's done a marvelous job, just the way she's taken the shots, the dance movements. We kept a little bit of folk, and yet we kept a little bit of the longing that a young girl has. She's waiting for her love, and you know those emotions, which came off beautifully, I think, in that song.
Okay,
Hi,
time for one more.
माधुरी आपके लेफ्ट में
Where?
पूरा लेफ्ट आपके और आगे आ जाता हूँ. हाय, मेरा सवाल है कि अभी हाल ही में आपके ही गाने तम्मा तम्मा को रिक्रिएट किया गया और आजकल ये चलन भी काफ़ी हो चला है. तो इस चलन को कैसे देखती हैं आप कि पुराने गानों को रिक्रिएट किया जा रहा है जो कि एवरग्रीन होते हैं, और आपका क्या इस पे कहना है?
Well, I should have said that when आपने जब क्वेश्चन पूछा मुझे कि do people still like that, क्योंकि आजकल trend is changing. So that itself proves that people still remember those songs. उन्हें फिर वो गाने लाने हैं वापस, because they are still emotionally attached to those songs, and they know that when people hear it, people are going to want to see the song. So so that kind of answers.
Okay, one more question.
हेलो
Lady
हेलो
here.
हेलो हेलो
Okay, fine. You then.
माधुरी जी, आपने आपके दौर में एक से एक बैक टू बैक हिट फिल्में दी हैं, और आज 20-25 साल बाद ये जो दौर है, तो सिनेमा में कितना बदलाव हुआ है, ये राइटिंग लेवल पर, डायरेक्शन लेवल पर, परफॉर्मेंस लेवल पर, या ऑडियंस लेवल पर? क्योंकि उस समय सिंगल थिएटर थे, आज मल्टीप्लेक्सेस है, तो ऑडियंस भी बदली है. तो क्या बदलाव महसूस करती हैं आप?
Well, बदलाव ये है कि पहले फिल्में अलग तरीके से बनती थी. आज एक सिस्टम बनी है जहाँ पे ज़्यादा डिसिप्लिन है. आपके जो स्क्रिप्ट्स रेडी रहते हैं, आपको पूरा बाउंड स्क्रिप्ट मिलता है फिल्म शुरू होने से पहले. आपके डायलॉग्स, आपका लुक, आप किस सीन में क्या पहनने वाले हैं, क्या लुक होगा आपका, एवरीथिंग इज़ वर्कड आउट. तो एन एक्टर के लिए ईजी हो जाता है कि उन्हें सिर्फ कॉन्सेंट्रेट करना है उनके परफॉर्मेंस पे वंस शी इज़ ऑन द सेट. तो दैट्स अ फैंटास्टिक थिंग दैट हैज़ हैपेंड. एंड ऑफ कोर्स इतने सारे PVR थिएटर्स आए हैं. देयर आर सो मैनी, स्टिल वी हैव सिंगल थिएटर्स, वी स्टिल हैव मल्टीप्लेक्सेस. तो अगर किसी को एक फिल्म बनानी है तो वो प्लान कर सकते हैं कौन से ऑडियंस को टारगेट करनी है. तो अगर एक नीश ऑडियंस के लिए आप फिल्म बना रहे हैं तो उस हिसाब से आप बजट कर सकते हैं अपनी फिल्म, और एक नीश ऑडियंस के लिए वो फिल्म बना सकते हैं, और वैसी मार्केटिंग होती है फिल्म की. तो आज ब्रॉडर बेस पे आप अलग अलग तरीके की फिल्म्स आप बना सकते हैं और प्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं.
I'm afraid
Hi,
the countdown
Madhuri.
is saying we are
Madhuri,
flat out
over
of
here.
time. This is the last question.
Hi,
lady here.
hello. Over here, the Madhuri.
Sorry, who's
Hi,
grabbed? Someone's grabbed.
this is Priyanka. The song "Pehla Pehla Pyar Hai" from Hum Aapke Hain Kaun is the most romantic song ever. So tell us something about your real life "Pehla Pehla Pyar." How you met Sriram Nene?
Well, I can tell you my pehla pehla pyar was pehle pehle on the bike. You heard the story.
Yes.
So it was not such a smooth like la 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 types, but emotions are something that as an actress, like you feel so many emotions, right? When you are relaying that on screen, somewhere it's a pretend emotion. But when it happens in real life, I think the impact is much more than what you have imagined. Like when I did Pehla Pehla Pyar Hai, I had imagined that. कि ये मेरी ये feeling होगी when it's Pehla Pehla Pyar and I'm dancing. But when it actually happens, it just hits you like a ton of bricks, it's a different experience.
Sounds like a dialogue from Dil To Pagal hai right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, last question. The lady
Thank
there.
you so much, Vikram. I appreciate that I always get the last question. So, Madhuri, big fan, but I'm really impressed and very happy that you got Dr. Sriram Nene here. And my question is to you, sir. You spoke about an app that I didn't get the name of earlier that connects wearable devices to the cloud platform and probably tracks them. But it seems to me that it's still an individual tracking their movements. And I was wondering if in the larger plan, you have some sort of a community sharing of their Fitbits or their whatever the wearable devices are, to sort of have a state-wise competition, or basically just have the fitness level of India going up by having competitions between districts or schools, or is that on the cards?
Yeah, so it's a great comment to make. Basically what you're saying is that rather than make it me, you make it we. And we have fundamentally incorporated some of that in one of the things that we're doing. But the idea is simple, that even with our existing apps for dance, everything is socialized. And if you see today with Facebook, Twitter, all of these things, you're bringing the community together. And so when I'm doing something, you see it, and you get pushed to doing the same thing. And similarly, when I'm not doing something that I should be doing, you also see it. And so the bigger problem for me is that's fine in the middle class and the upper class in the metros. How do you deal with the poorest of the poor and the 70%? And these are the lessons which we're learning along the way with this particular ecosystem we built. And there's a lot of work to be done, to be very honest with you, before we can really provide world-class, evidence-based care, but also education and other things. And that's the only way we're going to move forward as a country.
All right, well, thank you both so much.
Thank you, Vikram. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
It was really interesting, and looking forward to all the new stuff that you're going to be doing. Great to have you with us.